Good morning.
Woo!
What a morning it is. It is
I got
Tuesday.
I got a microphone and it goes up and down.
I like that. You got the arm on it, the long arm of the microphone long. Hey, lot to cover today. Rob Brown here, Brendan Martin in Ocala. We got Chris Lee, Southeastern 16, because there's 16 teams in the SEC. Wil Gunter, 107.5. The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. Big one. A&M travels to Columbia Saturday night, Brendan. And people call that a trap game, whatever. It's going to be the atmosphere in Columbia will be bonkers. BSC, bat spit crazy. Hey, smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. And subscribe. The more subscribers, the better it is for us. You'll get an automatic ping every morning when we go live on this channel, because we got a lot of shows, like the Buddy Martin Show tonight. I'll be on there at 8 with Lauren Meadows, David Whitley, and the team.
I think I'll be
Brendan. And we've got Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider. So a lot to cover. Pen and paper handy, because class is in session now. We're going to get started. Let me say something real quick. If you need a new car, truck, or SUV, LandersFordMemphis.com, the #1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South. Let me just start off by saying they are open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Service department opens up at 7 a.m. Closed on Sundays. Great people to work with. Call out there. Ask for our man, the general manager, Brad Bellamy. He will turn you on to a salesman, and they will take you through the process. Cars, trucks, SUVs. They've got a huge inventory. I love this dealership. They invest. Their name is on 6 local stadiums. And Brendan, it was funny last night. Collierville High School, number 3 in the state of Tennessee, 9-0, plays Houston High School. That's a big neighborhood rivalry up here. They're both at Landers stadiums. So Landers wins either way. So a lot to cover, man. And Brendan, Chris Lee's going to be on here with us. Before Chris comes on, I got to ask you, right now, you've got a great background in TV, 20-plus years working with ESPN, CBS, different ones. How incredible are the numbers for college football, and is it better than they probably imagined? I think it is.
I don't know what the numbers I don't know exactly what the numbers are. We're going to talk to Chris Lee because he knows everything about everything. So I'll ask him first. Chris, welcome to the program. Chris, thanks for the tip on Vandy. Appreciate it. Thanks for the heads up that you guys were going to be all good.
He told us back in the summer.
I know.
Oh man, you think you know what you're watching, and sometimes you don't know at all. That was to be serious. When you go to fall camp and you're watching, sometimes the second team quarterback and the fourth team receiver are taking snaps together and all that goes into that. You don't know what you're going to get till they really start going good on good.
Yeah.
Well, and so much of what they did was running, and you don't know how to judge running games in practice. I mean, what's blown dead after 3 yards could go for 30. So in my defense, there were some reasons, but boy, happy surprises can be fun at times.
You're not complaining.
And this season's fun for a change.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to sit down and talk to Diego Pavia?
Not one-on-one. I mean, you feel like through watching the other interviews, through dealing with him face-to-face in the media setting, you kind of feel like you know what you're getting there. He is maybe the most fun player I've ever covered.
Yeah. Well,
why though?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. What makes him fun?
Just watch. I mean, you don't ever on the field.
Know,
you don't ever know.
Pretend I've never seen him.
He is a point guard playing quarterback, and he's a point guard who'll flip a pass behind his back for a dunk or something like that you don't have on the bingo card. That's number one. Number two, just watch the guy in his press conference settings. I think he's real. He is from, I think he's from Dirt Poor, New Mexico.
Albuquerque.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any, for a campus that gets derided, and sometimes it's fair and sometimes it is not for its stuffiness. He is the antithesis of all that. He's very real.
Yeah.
He will drop a profanity in an interview and then talk about it, and then 5 seconds later apologize and a minute later talk about his love for Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, that's just colorful now. But now that's colorful, right?
Yeah.
Well,
that goes back
everything.
to like the Bull Durham thing. Like if you got bad flip flops with the grungy deal, like you're colorful until you throw a no, and then you're like,
But I'll tell you some other things, and I've learned this twice now. Okay, when I went to the Alabama press conference after they won, and by the way, a couple players during the week said we're going to win this game, and we all thought, what a dumb thing to say. And they believed it. And like if you went to the press conference afterwards, when you walked through the building, and maybe I missed it because, man, it was a headache getting there. But there wasn't this like spontaneous outpouring of joy from every corner of the building. I mean, I walked through the coach's office's hallway to get there.
Yeah.
They said they expected to win. And what I saw and heard back that up. You go to the press conference, it was kind of like, yeah, we won the game. We thought we would win the game. And it was just the most, it was the craziest thing I've ever covered there. And then the Texas game, they come within an onside kick of maybe winning the game, right? And I think Texas, I don't know who the most talented team in the country is, but it might be them. And they get an onside kick and recover it, and they might win that game.
Yeah.
And you go to the press conference and everything, and it was like someone had died. They thought they would win that game. And to connect it back to your question, I think a lot of that has to do with Diego Pavia and the New Mexico State crew. I think they brought a complete mindset flip to that building that it needed. And it is remarkable to watch after all these years of covering a program. And, they lose games and they're close and everybody takes it as a moral victory and they're close to turning the corner and they're not. And this time it's like, we don't care if we lost by a point to the best team in the country. We didn't win, and that's missing the point.
Well, that's what you want. You'll never get better as a program until you get madder than hell after a loss.
Well,
and
guys,
fan bases too. Apathy will kill a program and a team.
Well, don't you guys think a little bit it's this perspective, and maybe I'm a West Coast Colorado person, so I grew up out there. Like you don't know that narrative. It's the old psyche, right? It's like the tapes. Like you don't really know what's happened in the past. I know people don't get that, but you're really not out there. You're not a part of this vibe. You don't know Vandy's struggled in the SEC like they have. All you know is that that's in Nashville and that place is sexy and people want to be there. And why shouldn't I be there? And I think that matters, right, guys? Like, doesn't it matter a little bit for these younger generations? Because now that we're seeing this parity amongst all these smaller teams and programs with NIL and transfer portal. So now guys are, they're thinking, hey, why wouldn't I go over there and make a difference? Because, dude, I'm in New Mexico. I don't know if y'all, but I'm here. I'm playing here. You're going to tell me I'm going to play in Nashville? Let's go. Right?
Yeah. Well, Chris, along the line to what he's saying, you and I have talked about Vanderbilt. I've got a lot of my family went to school there, went to law school there, a lot of friends. And like there's this one group text I have. There's like 20 of us on there. Didi Malmo. Didi played baseball up at Vanderbilt. He's from Memphis. He has always steadfastly maintained and kept his loyalty. He loves the Doors. And every season, he's always hopeful. And I'm watching that guy just trip out. It is so much fun. Just the emojis that are popping up. But he's a true Commodore guy. And you know how I just know how much it frustrates you because you know what it takes to win. You cover all these programs. And this has got to be fun for you and the loyal people that have backed Vandy. Do you think they're going to open up the doors and go outside their traditional donor base and try to get more people in? Because what's a better time than now?
Oh, man, that's a long answer. I still see some elements of same old Vandy that I won't get into for the time being. But I will tell you this, and I know that like they still got outnumbered by Texas on Saturday. Yeah. But, man, the Vanderbilt fans that are there, are making a lot of noise. The atmosphere is kind of fun, and I think just that new end zone section where you got people right on top of it, and frankly, all the seats there are pretty close. There's not like an awful seat in that place
too, aren't they? They're making that end zone section.
Yeah,
that's that party.
And I think I really wish they'd have finished the whole thing, because I think if you got 2 end zones like that, then it's really an event.
Guess who's redesigning their stadium right now?
Probably everybody.
The Swamp. Yeah. The Swamp's going through an overhaul soon, so that we could see that dual, like boom boom party with like the Sky party up top. You know, I mean that may not.
Well, I mean, they've got a DJ, they've got an energetic PA announcer, and look, if you're getting beat 40-0, there's nothing you can do to get people excited. But they did a couple things like that to make it more of a party atmosphere. And the one thing that just has stunned me, and you could say, well, yeah, they beat Alabama, so of course they're going to show up. But no, I mean, the Virginia Tech game, the student section was full. The student paper wrote an op-ed last week about how you guys need to help us get more students in the building. And the school did the typical denial thing. I know a little more here than I can go into.
Yeah, I know.
But basically they were saying, hey, we don't have a student issue here. You know, and the assistant sports editor for the paper's like, hey, I was in the stands. They wouldn't let us go to the bathroom. If you walked out, you forfeited your seat because it was full. They had their student allotment full. They had to turn away people. They got smart, and they let them go to the standing room only part in the news section last week. But you've got students, and again, you could say, well, they beat Alabama, of course. But I mean, no, from the jump against Virginia Tech, when they were 13.5-point dogs, the students showed up, and they showed up in more numbers than the school could handle. Which, I mean, Vanderbilt's the only place on the planet that could have a problem getting its own fans in the building and also turn down its own fans at the same time.
Good problem.
That's just a vanity thing. But the students, I mean, have been incredible in their attendance, in their enthusiasm. And if they can get a season ticketing plan together where they can start to sell more of those, and every one of those you sell, it crowds out a Texas fan or a Tennessee fan or an Alabama fan. And say get that place to it's 30,000, but they're 25, 26,000 a year people. With them being on top of it, I think they could create for Vanderbilt a really, really great atmosphere.
Aren't they? It was 41,000. Did they shrink it? Or are they going to go back to 41?
No, they shrunk it when they put in those end zone buildings and when they tore out the Rob. I don't know if you've been there lately.
I was there last year for the Auburn game when they were doing all the construction. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when they knocked out that end zone, and it used to be the closed end zone, that knocked out about, I don't know, maybe 10,000 seats. And I think when they get that other part done, it'll be like 31.5, and so they'll have, closed the gap a little bit, but it's not going to be more than 32,000 seats when it's done.
Yeah, everyone seems to be getting smaller. Florida's going to lose some seats too in the Swamp for the skyboxes and stuff. That's the design, at least.
Yeah, well, we're going to bring in Chris. Stay with us if you can, at least till like about 30 minutes after the hour.
Sure.
But because I want to get you involved with Wil Gunter. He does a great show all over the great Palmetto State. 107.5 The Game in Columbia. Chris Lee, Southeastern 16. Talking about that Vandy, what's going on there, let's talk about Columbia too. A&M coming in there, they're 5-0 in the conference. That atmosphere Saturday night in Columbia is nuts. It is insane. They had LSU until they didn't, and now they've got another big-time top 10 team coming in, kind of lay out the what you think's going to happen, what needs to happen Saturday night, and I'll let you and Chris go back and forth. I'm going to watch. Two smart guys.
Yeah, it's South Carolina's last night game of the year. It's going to be kind of crazy. It's definitely the last night game here at Williams-Brice Stadium, and some fans have really wanted a night atmosphere, an SEC night atmosphere. You mentioned the LSU was a noon kickoff. Mississippi was 3:30. Missouri will be at least it's scheduled to be an afternoon kickoff according to the SEC. We don't know. We're assuming SEC Network at 4:15. But so people here are pretty fired up, obviously, and I think you look at this Texas A&M team. A lot of the discussion through the first 2 days here, we just wrapping up our show, has been how good is this team? How good is Texas A&M? You look at what they've done on the season. There's been some kind of closer games. Obviously, they always play a close one. It seems like against Arkansas there in Jerry World. But last week, LSU had them. LSU and Garrett Nussmeier completely came unglued. LSU totally forgot how to stop any semblance of a running quarterback. They've struggled all year. South Carolina got them pretty good with Lenore Sellers here. But I think there's a lot of feeling that this is a winnable game. And when you get a night atmosphere here, I don't think I'm out of line in saying it will be the best atmosphere in college football on Saturday, since Penn State, Ohio State is a noon game. It's not going to hit quite as hard when it's a noon game up there in Happy Valley. But people here are really excited about this. Obviously, it helps when you come off of that win over Oklahoma, too.
Yeah.
So there's people here that are really jazzed up for this game. Tailgate all day. It's supposed to be really nice. High on Saturday is going to be about high 70s. It'll be a little chilly there at night, so it's going to be great football weather. So, yeah, people are they're ready to start tailgating here at 9:19 on a Tuesday morning and forget working the rest of the week.
Chris Lee, that atmosphere, what's not to like about it? Maybe in the 60s at night, pretty hard to not like that. Chris, your thoughts on A&M? Did you see Marcel Reed play in high school in Nashville?
No, I didn't. But my brother is the PA spotter for NBA, so he saw all his games.
Here you go. Yeah. That kid is. I mean, is he a true freshman or a red shirt?
Red shirt. Well, no, he played last year, so he's a sophomore.
Okay, but he played at NBA.
Well, no, he played at NBA 2 years ago. He played as a true freshman last year at A&M.
Yeah, but he graduated from NBA. Yeah,
correct.
The gentleman scholars. Yeah, okay. Because, I mean, your thoughts on what Will just said?
First of all, I think that fan base may be the most loyal in the SEC. They show up. Yeah. Win or lose. I remember when Lou Holtz had them in those winless seasons, that you still had fans showing up. And I'm glad they get a night game. I think it'll be tremendous. To me, Carolina is kind of hard to figure because some weeks they can give you problems with the Lenore Sellers. And if Sanders is feeling well, they feel really turnover dependent, which is not something. A&M doesn't cough the ball up a whole lot. Of course, a lot of what Carolina does is rush the passer. A&M is really good at protecting it, and vice versa. A lot of what Carolina is vulnerable to is pass rush. And A&M's got talented guys, but the sack numbers haven't been there like we thought. So I think back to what Will said about it being a winnable game, I feel like every game is winnable for South Carolina based on what you've seen. Stylistically, I'm not sure it's the best matchup for them, but week to week, I don't know what the numbers mean anymore because it feels like you can pick 5 games and 2 of them go in directions you never saw coming, and it's just the craziest year I think that I've covered, and probably the most fun year too.
Will, yeah, that fan base, 80,000 Williams-Brice. I've been following Carolina since the 70s. What's the temperature right now? I mean, I'm a Shane Beamer fan just because I like him and I love his dad because he coached at Virginia Tech. But what's he doing different this year? Because what they did at Oklahoma, it's still Oklahoma. That has to get you excited on the road, and he's got a history there.
Yeah, but it was still a bad offensive performance at Oklahoma. But
it was.
We were listening to Mike Elko this morning, and again, Mike Elko was talking yesterday in his press conference about a couple of the defensive players, and it dawned on us, we don't know what it's going to look like with Dylan Stewart in a couple years, but there's the potential for 4 first-round picks that are playing on this defense. Kyle Kennard is working his way up. We'll see. He's right there, borderline. He's had such a good year. He's kind of borderline. Nick Eamon-Warry, the safety, doing the same thing. He's working his way up. TJ Sanders is the one that I'm confused on, but if you look at CBS Sports, 3 of their 6 mock drafts have TJ Sanders, a defensive lineman, being selected in this year's first round. I'm personally surprised by that, but sure, I'll use it to make my point. They're doing it defensively. This is a veteran defense. You look at the front six guys. the 4 down linemen and the 2 linebackers. Out of that front 6, 15 of those guys are either super seniors or seniors. So there's a lot of age. Let's go. One of them is a father with 2 kids. Demetrius Knight is a father with 2 kids. He knows how to talk AARP. But the bottom line here is that, it's a veteran defense, and that's obviously what is carrying them. Now, what I think is concerning is they're 11th in the league, defensively 11th in the league in explosive pass plays given up. They've given up 9 pass plays of 30 yards or more this season. It's a defense that you can take advantage of because they're aggressive. And to that point, if it's going to be Marcel Reed, which I'm sure we expect on Saturday, do you worry about your defensive lineman getting too far upfield, rushing the passer, and creating running lanes for him to make an explosive play? I know he comes in as a 58% passer, so if you can force him to throw the football, you create that opportunity for a big takeaway that changes the momentum of the game. And like I said, the atmosphere at Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday night, you're gonna have a lot of people who've done some serious tailgating. If South Carolina can stay in it. 2 years ago, South Carolina ran the opening kickoff back. Xavier Legette broke a tackle and got going down the sideline, ran out of one of his shoes. South Carolina jumped all over A&M in the first quarter and got up 17-0 and held on for dear life to win 30-24. That's their only win in the series. A&M is 9-1 in this series. The first game that was played was back in 2014, and that was an embarrassment for South Carolina. They were number 9 in the country that particular year. They were a double-digit favorite. That was really, a lot of people around here point to it, that was the end of the Steve Spurrier era when they lost that night to Kenny Hill. So this has been a very lopsided rivalry. South Carolina fans would love to beat Texas A&M because it just hadn't happened. It doesn't happen. And as a matter of fact, the 3 of the games over the last 5 years have been absolute blowouts. So you got to get on them early. You got to get on them early to keep that crowd into it and keep the energy going in that building.
Chris, do you see it happening? Can A&M, can Carolina beat A&M? How good is this A&M team?
Look, throw Mississippi State out of it. Put the other 15, and maybe Oklahoma too, because they can't move the ball at all. And maybe Kentucky if they've given up, which I have some questions. But put all the other teams in the hat. It's almost to the point where you pull any of them out, and I don't care if it's Georgia or whoever, one team can beat the other. So, I mean, of course it's possible. For Carolina, it's been just really up and down. I mean, you've got, I think you can say if it weren't for a penalty flag or 2, they might have beaten LSU. The season looks a lot different. 2 weeks later, they get crushed by an Ole Miss team that's not playing at the top of its game. They had the near miss against Alabama, and then they blow out Oklahoma. So, I mean, it feels like their games go, I don't know. Some weeks they're really good, and again, I think it comes back to turnovers and field position. And some weeks they just don't have enough offense to get it going. I'm concerned that A&M's got some athletes up front that can stop a lot of what they're doing. But like I said, I don't count them out at all. Especially with the way they're able to generate scores with their defense. I mean, you can be a good offense that holds onto the ball, and even Worry can run one back against you. So, I mean, they're a little bit of a wild card, I think.
Yeah. Will, who is your defensive coordinator at South Carolina?
Clayton White.
Okay. And I'm looking at first year for Mike Elko. He'd been at A&M, went to Duke, came back. But, we're seeing that first half against Oklahoma, how many offensive yards did Carolina have at the end of the first quarter when they were up 21-0? 41? Something like that?
Well, they'd run 5 plays. They'd run 5 plays and they were up. I don't know the exact yardage in that one, but they'd run 5 plays and were up 21-0 there because of the fumble recovery. South Carolina got the first interception, ran 5 plays and scored. Oklahoma then fumbled it. They ran it back. That made it 14-0, and then Eamon Worry had the touchdown. And in that game, and what y'all are saying is right about the offense. The offensive line has been an absolute disaster this season. I think if they're not dead last, I don't know after this past weekend, with South Carolina not playing, if they're not dead last in the country in sacks given up, they're within 3. I think they were 133rd in the country going into last weekend. That offensive line's been a disaster, and you're working with a redshirt freshman quarterback who can make a play or two at times. But just like you talk about that Alabama game, South Carolina's got all the momentum in the world. They're up 5 going in the fourth quarter in that game, and Lenore Sellers essentially drops the football. I mean, on a mesh play, just drops it and gives Alabama the ball back around the 30-yard line in that game, and Alabama was able to go in and score and take the lead. And there was a lot of feeling at that time that South Carolina's offense had gotten going. They'd gone on a 16-play, 85-yard drive to take the lead in that game. So all of a sudden everything's working well. But there's just some things. Offensive line is a disaster. You're playing with a quarterback who I think still leads the league in fumbles in the season. Again, I haven't really checked the stats after last weekend, but there's just things that don't seem to click at times. And then all of a sudden something kind of just pops and they hit a play here, they hit a play there. And the next thing you know, it looks like it's kind of working.
Yeah. Chris, a couple more questions here before you got to go. You look at South Carolina, A&M, it's going to be a big one. We got Florida, Georgia. We talked about that a lot yesterday. It's big picture of the SEC. How difficult or how improbable is it that Vandy's having the kind of season they're having? And one of the viewers just said Diego Pavia was a state wrestling champion in New Mexico. I mean, he's probably going to, if he doesn't make it in the NFL, he's going to go into MMA or something like that. I mean, because he's tough, but is this the best season top to bottom that you can remember in the SEC football?
It is. And before I go further, I want to look up a couple things Will was touching on, just to illustrate his point. Carolina's lost 8 fumbles this year. That's number 1 in the league in a bad way. And we talked about their pass rush. They have gotten sacks on about 11.5% of passing plays. Now, the bad news is as elite as that is, their offense has given up on about 15.5% of passing plays, which is just probably explains a lot. But anyway, I think the league is fun, and as I remember it. Again, usually we're to this point of the season where it's like one team is dominating.
Yeah.
And you're like, can anybody beat them? I mean, there are, I don't know, you got 7 teams in the playoff discussion. I have no idea who's going to win the league.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a lot more fun than can anybody come within 2 touchdowns of Alabama or Georgia or fill in the blank, which is the discussion we're usually having this time of the year.
Great points. And doing a show like this, we cover them all. You cover the Southeastern 16. Will, you're covering South Carolina, but you're going to cover the whole SEC. You've got the fan support. Y'all are doing that part. Recruiting and all that stuff's got to kick in. What do you see? What's going to be a season that keeps Shane Beamer at South Carolina? I mean, I'm not into firing coaches. I mean, if you do that every 3 or 4 years, you get nothing. I mean, his father took a long time at Virginia Tech, but that was in a different era. But what do you think is going to happen with this Carolina program? Because the fan support's there.
Yeah, but I mean, in the world of college football now, fans are being asked to pay more money, donations for tickets, NIL donations. South Carolina just put out a stadium renovation plan last Friday. So the patience is not where it used to be, which is fine. It's understandable. Look, these coaches are making a lot of money these days. You're not paying 6.5 or 9 million or 12 million to lose. That's the bottom line. So with that being said, I think something interesting, they need to go to a bowl game, and you look at this stretch, they're 4-3. They should beat Wofford, an FBS team or FCS team. I guess 5. But then you look at the rest this weekend. They're an underdog. I think they're a slight favorite looking ahead to Vanderbilt. I think it's like a 1 or 2 point favorite up in Nashville next weekend. They'll be an underdog likely to Missouri in a few weeks, and then Clemson on the road. So you go 1-4 this month, people are going to be upset.
Yeah.
But what may happen here is South Carolina's in the process of finding a new athletic director. The word is it's going to take until the spring to do that. If that is the case, no athletic director is going to come in March or April and make a change. So barring an absolute collapse, Shane Beamer will be back next year for a pivotal year.
Yeah. All right, Chris, I know you got to go. We got Southeastern 16 is what you are. Tell people how they can follow you, because you put out tons of great content, and we really appreciate you coming on with us.
Yeah, the reason I have to go a little early is we do baseball, basketball, football year round. So obviously we're right in the middle of football season. I've got some football content to cover this morning. We're also rolling out some kind of basketball extravaganza episode. I'm letting my co-host run that. I'm just going to show up. I've done my prep. We're going to roll out our preseason picks. And so been doing a lot of prep for that. We'll do a baseball show later in the week, and then I'm going to head to Clark Lea's press conference for Vandy and Auburn here, which will be 1 Central. So that's the day in front of me.
Yeah, and that game is going to be, Vanderbilt. Well, we're trying to make history. Vanderbilt will be first time they've ever won at Auburn. They'll be shooting for that, so that will be an intense game. I mean, that will be, because Auburn's they can't take anybody for granted, and Vandy is dialed in like a sniper.
Yeah, and if you're listening to Hugh Freeze yesterday, he is clearly not looking forward to facing Diego Pavia after last year, and I don't think he would either. They're just they're a nightmare to match up with. They don't always win, but I mean their biggest loss this year was 4 points at Georgia State. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be fun. Chris, let's do it again next week. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.
Will, along these lines, and Yancy Porter Rebel Yell Hotline, it's going to join us now. Catch them Monday nights, 6 p.m. Sports 56 WHBQ and Super Talk Mississippi, and Rodney Orr, Tyler Insider momentarily. Before I go to Yancy, Will, I just got to say, kind of in a 30 seconds or less, what is the SEC in terms, SEC, South Carolina versus Clemson? That is a heated rivalry. I've seen what we saw a couple of years ago. You went on the road at the end of the season. You beat Tennessee 63-38. You went on the road and beat Clemson 31-30. Anything's possible, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, when you have a defense and you can play in pretty much every game, and that's what South Carolina does have. We'll see how Lenore Sellers continues to develop. This is now game 8 for him. It's why I think getting to a bowl game is so vital, because if they'd have made a bowl game last year, you could have had Lenore Sellers prep for what is essentially a meaningless bowl game. It's meaningless in terms of wins and losses now, but in terms of being able to use those as a spring game and play your younger players, if you'd have given Lenore Sellers that month of December to act like the starting quarterback, to prep like the starting quarterback, to then play a bowl game that the result didn't matter, it'd have been vital. That's why you got to get to another one right now. But again, what happens with his development here over the next 5 weeks?
We'll let people know how they can follow you and keep up with you. And let's do this again next week. Great stuff as always. And we'll be getting into a lot of basketball here very soon.
Yeah. We actually exhibition game for South Carolina tomorrow night. But definitely, just at Wil, Wil Gunter on Twitter or X. And of course, you can always go to 1075thegame.com and listen 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern time in the morning.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, yeah.
Rain or shine. All right. Hey, thank you so much, man. Looking forward to hearing from you
next
week. Not a problem,
buddy. I'll take care.
You bet. All right, Yancy, Rodney, this SEC football season, wow, Jackie Sherrill spoke last night at the Touchdown Club in Memphis. That was a lot of fun. Again, 32 years ago, we were all reminding him when he spoke at the Touchdown Club in Memphis about what's happening in college football. If I'm a TV executive in New York or Connecticut, I'll start with you, Yancy. I'm doing backflips over these numbers we're getting for college football this year. True or false?
Well, certainly. I mean, you look at the play around the year this season. It's been exceptional football. You got 20, even 25 teams that still feel like they got a chance of making the playoffs here at the end of the season, which is putting even more an emphasis on these matchups. I think going to 12-team expansion is exactly what was needed, and I can't wait for the next move to go to 16 teams.
Yeah. Rodney, speaking of that, we go to 16. Lee Fitting, executive producer, I think ESPN Sports, said 3 years ago, when we go to this new format, in November, you're going to have audiences and fans around the country paying attention to games they otherwise didn't really give a damn about. True or false? I think it is.
No, I mean, I think the more teams you have involved, the more teams that have opportunities that are still alive. Yeah, certainly. It's going to draw eyes,
Yeah.
There's a time where a lot of these teams right now, whether it's Alabama or Tennessee or Ole Miss, their seasons last year would be basically over right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be over.
Now they're going to want to watch Alabama and LSU because not just Alabama and LSU fans, but just whoever that's college football fans can, because this could impact, which one of these teams potentially stay alive for the playoffs. And there's so many other games like that. Whoever Ole Miss plays next, whatever. Ole Miss eventually plays Georgia. Again, just the chances of teams, the opportunities that these teams still have. And I'm like, Yancy mentioned 16, I'm with him on that. I was just thinking even before you brought that up, that 16, that would probably be a good number. But, I will say this, Rob, just real quickly. I think that's probably about the limit.
Correct.
16. I don't think you really want to go much more than that, because that kind of that excitement you're talking about, the more you go, the more teams you involve after that, then all of a sudden it kind of waters down everything to me.
Yeah, and it does. And we the scouting report, Alabama has off this weekend. They need the rest, but the scouting report, Yancy, on Ole Miss right now, watching them play Oklahoma Saturday, 14-10, they're still Oklahoma. They there's a mystique to these programs like that. But Ole Miss did what they did. They scored 26 points, which is the most they've scored in an SEC game this year. You got to travel up to the northwest corner of Arkansas Saturday. I think it's the timeout game, 11 a.m. That favors, and I bet a lot, that favors the visiting team, because Ole Miss especially loves to script the first 16 plays. You jump on top 14-0, boy, you take the crowd out. Some people may not even walk in, but it's going to be a full 60. That's how this rivalry's played. What do you think's going to happen Saturday at Reynolds Razorback Stadium? By the way, the naming rights are available, anybody, if you've got 20 or 30 million to spare.
Yeah, you talk about the time slot. It's been nothing but the message boards have been talked about that for the last day or so. Ole Miss will now play 5 of their 8 SEC games at 11 o'clock in the morning, 0 night games, first time since 2009. It's just, and they had a top 10 preseason team, so you can't say because it's the quality of the team. Everybody's spitting nails about it. They're upset about it. The Georgia game got bumped down to 2:30. They were expected that to get a nighttime game there. Nobody's happy about the time slots right now. Ole Miss fans, as far as the game, the matchup, I mean, it's going to be a difficult matchup for Ole Miss. Ole Miss simply just isn't playing very well right now. They just aren't. The first half was a total disaster. They got it together. Now, I will say this: they shut Oklahoma down. They gave up like 79 yards of offense in the second half to Oklahoma, 8 sacks, and got after them, outscored them 16-0. Could have been a lot worse, but they just don't take advantages. They game after game after game. They're 133rd now out of 134 teams in the country in penalties against them. They're playing undisciplined. They can't run the ball. Taking Quinshon Judkins out of the lineup and putting Henry Parrish, I think, has been the biggest factor for this season versus last year.
Man, bim, bam, burgers and breakfast. Man, I'm getting hungry talking about it. And what you just said about Ole Miss, I hate that. And Rodney, I think you'll agree, night football in the South is special. It's iconic. It's sexy. It's great on TV. How much do you think the TV people, when they're putting these schedules together, take into consideration how much the fans love night football? Do you think they care? Are they just using an algorithm or some kind of matrix to do it?
Well, I mean, you're talking about the process of determining who's going to play at night or whatever.
Yeah, because everybody wants night games.
I guess there's a lot of factors that go into it, Rob, that I'm not privy to, or I'm not, have never really thought to consider. To be honest with you, I don't know.
I'm not in there. Yeah.
I really don't know. I guess they want to put the teams that stack the games the way they feel like that particular week. And I don't know all the games this week that would kind of dictate, if you want to use that word, Ole Miss playing at 11 a.m. I guess that's the way they look at it. They want to stack the games where they feel like they'll generate the most viewers. That's the only thing I can figure. I don't know. I'm not one of those guys. I just cover Alabama, Rob. That's all I do.
Yeah. But I tell you what, night football, it is special. And of course, it used to be special because we didn't have all the games on TV. So if you had the AM radio out, you could pick up games at night. AM 750 WSB used to carry Georgia football, and they still do, actually. They still carry Georgia football at night. 870 WWL New Orleans, LSU football. You can hear that up in Nova Scotia. And I love the night football. And I thought that ESPN SEC Network documentary on Saturday Night Lights in the South was fantastic. Yancy, I got to ask you on Ole Miss preseason, and I know Rodney knows what this is like, and Ole Miss preseason was playoffs or bust. You lose one more game, you're going to have to get directions to bust, but that's also a sign of the progress of the Ole Miss football program that the fans will be mad as hell if you don't make the playoffs. I'm not saying you're not, but when you have that mindset among your fans, they'll keep writing checks because they're going to go, we're that close. We're just close. I think that's what's going on there.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it arguably will be the most disappointing season in Ole Miss history if they don't make the playoffs this year. And I just think that the run game, the offensive line, they thought they were going to get those starters back last week. They did not. And then Pettis, their right tackle, their lone starter, he right before the game, he tweaks a knee and he can't go in the game. So it all starts up front. They're doing a poor job blocking. And again, the drop off between Quinshon Judkins and Parrish is really, really, really big. And they're not giving Bentley. He's back in the doghouse. He only got a couple carries. They shoved him back on the bench. And, nobody knows what's going on. It really
What's going on with that poor guy?
Yeah, I don't know. Nobody knows. But, Parrish is averaging, I think, 2.8 yards a carry this year in SEC play. And the ball's in his hand over 20% of the time on every offensive play this season has been in your worst skilled offensive player's hands. It makes zero sense.
No.
Nobody knows what's going on. I'm not even sure Lane does.
Yeah. Rodney, you talked preseason a lot about that running back room at Alabama. Justice Haynes out of Buford, Georgia. He hit a guy the other day. I hadn't seen a guy hit someone and just run over him like that in a while. That was kind of Herschel Walker, Bill Bates, 1980. My God, a freshman. My God, the big guy from Wrightsville, Georgia. He ran right over him in the end zone. Look at those thighs. My God. Did you think about that when he did that the other night? And I'm surprised they didn't call targeting on the guy.
No, I mean, I honestly didn't think about that, but
Okay.
That's now that you mention it, though, it was very similar in terms of he trucked him. That's for sure. That's the word I used in my description on Tighter Insider was that, there's been some complaints or, fans talking that Justice Haynes has been a disappointment this year, that he's running soft, so to speak. And I said, well, he sure trucked that Missouri guy there,
Yes.
And then he used a little bit of finesse to get into the end zone. And, I think it's just these guys, whether it's Jam Miller or Justice Haynes, they haven't gotten a lot of carries. I mean, even this last game, Justice Haynes had 8 carries. Jam had 11 because Milroe's carrying the ball so much. He's carried it 14 times against Tennessee.
Yeah.
He carried it 11 times again this past, which is good. I mean, but here's the thing I noticed about Alabama this week, a little bit different to me, was that it's I want to phrase this the right way. It seems to me that maybe DeBoer and Nick Sheridan, the offensive coordinator, have come to the conclusion, they probably wouldn't say it this way, that they've probably got Milroe as far as you can go in terms of what he can do. So you want to put him in a situations where he's not the guy having to do everything, if that makes sense. In other words, there's some quarterbacks, whether it's Tua or Bryce Young, they can do it all. When they're on this level, they can do it all. Yeah. Okay, but so they have to give Jalen Milroe things to do. The quick, short throws. In other words, there's nothing, no read, bam, get it out of your hand real quickly. So I thought they did those things, and I thought that was, successful in terms of building some confidence, building some rhythm with him. Pull it down. If the guy's not there, go, run, use your ability. That's what you got to do. So I think I saw more of that in this game against Missouri. He missed some throws. He missed some guys that were open. But still, the key was he didn't turn the ball over. The last 3 weeks, he's had 6 turnovers, 5 interceptions, threw 2 picks in the end zone, right? Going in for touchdowns, throws picks in the end zone. Not only that, he threw a pick 6. So, I mean, this week he didn't throw any so they're managing him really, really well right now in this last game.
Well, you pointed out, remember Yancy last week when Rodney said Jalen Milroe against Tennessee was asked to stand in the pocket 50 times, and he threw on 45 of those. He ran on 5 of them. If a guy's really good at something, I think the worst thing you can do is try to get him not to do that. If your business is great at making smash burgers, don't start making hot dogs. That Jalen Milroe is with his legs, his ability to run, and he's a powerful guy, would keep me up at night, Yancy, if I'm a defensive coordinator. You're talking about Ole Miss. The player that comes to mind with me is Ulysses Bentley IV. I absolutely love that name. I don't know what he's done, but I bet you there's some heated discussions like, why is he not playing? What could he possibly have done to, warrant him being denied carries? Because I think he's your best option as a running back, and you're going to need him Saturday up in Fayetteville because Travis Williams will have a good game plan. He will.
Yeah, it's a mystery. He hasn't done enough where they're not letting him dress out. He did get a couple carries in the game, but he didn't come back in after the first quarter. So I don't know. He got to play one series, and then he was gone for the rest of the game. It would be different if Henry Parrish were having success on the field, but he's not, and the running game isn't. And that's what it is very, very strange what's going on. Because that is obviously Ole Miss's thorn in the side right now is the running game, and their star running back is staying on the sideline, and they don't have any other running back yet that can produce. And we'll see.
Yancy, 2 players from the Joe Moore award-winning, that's the top offensive line in college football, from Washington transferred to Ole Miss. How are they playing?
They're playing okay. They're not playing at a high level, honestly. There's the Ole Miss's offensive line coach Garrison that came over from NC State is receiving a lot of heat, and deservedly so. We'll see what happens to him this all season.
Yeah, Rodney. Looking at Alabama, you're still alive. I mean, from 1969 to 1999, a 30-year period. I don't think Alabama lost at Tiger Stadium, Death Valley. Yeah. That is a streak that is it's unheard of. It just doesn't happen. So Alabama feels confident going down and looking ahead to LSU. And then you look at LSU, when A&M switched quarterbacks Saturday night, they looked like they had not been to class all semester.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just think the difference in styles seemed to catch them off guard. I mean, you had Weigman, who's more of a, pocket guy.
Yeah.
And then this other kid, Reed, who is just a jackrabbit, man. I mean, he can dart, and he can run, and he can do all these different things. Now, I think it's kind of the same thing, Alabama and LSU. It's, they're both in the same boat. They're trying to keep their hopes alive. I don't get too wrapped up necessarily in one game. I know Nussmeier had a rough second half. I think he threw 3 interceptions. Is that right? In the second half?
You're correct, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but to me, he's a really good player, man. He's a tremendous player. He's a gamer, tough kid. They've got some real skill there. That tight end's unbelievable. Taylor. Jason Taylor's son, right? Mason Taylor. And then, Aaron Anderson and all the other recruiters that they have. Aaron Anderson started here at Alabama. He was, before he transferred back to LSU, or, he's originally from New Orleans. Okay. But no, they've got some talent, man. I mean, I think it's going to be a real challenge for the Alabama defense. I think LSU's getting a lot better defensively as things have gone along. I think they've gotten better. Now, I know the second half, they kind of had the issues with the quarterback change, but I still think that they've made a lot of progress defensively. It's going to be a real challenge because, Alabama didn't handle the noise. Yeah. They didn't handle the road very well. Not even at Vanderbilt, right? I mean, They didn't handle that well. They didn't handle all of the atmosphere at Tennessee. So it's a road game. It's a big road game. So we'll see, Yeah.
Wait, no, looking around the conference, and I want to say something real quick. Unrivaled 1899. This is an awesome book. It's written about Sewannee's 1899 season. They won 5 games in 6 days. I think every football coach in America should show this video. It's a DVD. It's a great documentary called Sewanee Unrivaled. Remind them of what college football is all about. And I use this as a segue to you, Yancy. How much tradition, and I get a lot of requests from fans of this show. So I'm going to ask you, Yancy, some history questions on Ole Miss, and then you, Rodney. And I know y'all will know what this is, but the fans want to hear it. Yancy, for someone that doesn't know a whole lot about Ole Miss, what is something that's really cool about it's a tradition, 1 or 2 things that they need to know? So when they look at Ole Miss next time, they'll go, did you know that, whatever? Tell them.
Oh, gosh.
This is your life.
I mean, as a freshman, you got to wear a sport coat to football games. If we're just talking about football traditions.
Are there any other? I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, not things you can say on the air.
Yes.
Let's see. I really don't know. Honestly, I really don't. That people don't know about. Everybody knows about the Grove, and a lot of people have chandelier.
Well, Yancy, when Yancy comes back, we lost Yancy. Here's where I was going with this. I want you to tell people real quick. The Grove started with people taking station wagons out there, and then it took off. But when did it become? I'd say late 80s, early 90s. Is that when they started? Mid 90s, they started opening up where you could come in the night before and set up.
Yeah, it was in the early 90s when they went away with the cars in the Grove, and they went to benches. Yep. They went to benches, and then the tents came mid 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now
I got one for you, Rob. There's one called the world's largest outdoor cocktail party that's happening. That's kind of a tradition. Have you heard about that one?
Yeah.
It's when there's 2 teams, the Florida Gators and the Georgia Bulldogs, they get together at this place called Jacksonville, and everyone, they have a few drinks.
Well,
have you heard of it?
And you know what? I still call
that's
it
tradition.
the largest outdoor cocktail party. And
we do
Rodney,
too.
And it's a great that is a unique atmosphere, like the Red River Shootout at the Cotton Bowl. Rodney, when people go to Alabama, that's a big campus. Denny Chimes. If you don't know about who Dr. Denny was, then you don't know how the University of Alabama made it through the 30s. But he saved that school, and that College of Business did, because it was the first accredited College of Business in the Deep South, established in 1917, and it pulled people from all over the country. A lot of people that didn't get into Ivy League schools ended up coming to Alabama, and you're still reaping the dividends of that with people like Hugh Culverhouse and all that kids went there. Bernie Madoff went there briefly, but I digress. But Rodney, let's talk about that campus. Somebody coming to Alabama, the Walk of Champions, and putting your
You're
handprint.
stealing my thunder, Rob.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm excited. I'm drinking too much coffee.
Good Lord. Township.
So anyway, it's interesting that you asked that question. My best friend from high school, I graduated in 1978. He was 79. He went to Texas. I went to Alabama. So I hadn't seen him in like 30 some odd years, right? He emails or texts me about 2 months ago, and he said, man, I've been wanting to do this for so many years. I'm going to come to Tuscaloosa for a game, So he came in last Thursday. It happened to be homecoming, as you know, for the Missouri game. He says, I want to see what Alabama's all about. Now, a few weeks ago, back in September, he goes up to Ann Arbor for the Texas-Michigan game. So he's been in the big house, right? He comes to Tuscaloosa, wants to see what it's all about. Of course, I show him around. I get him there early for the game to see the Walk of Champions you're talking about, which, of course, is the players. They walk up, the coaches, all the personnel, whatever. They walk up into the stadium 2.5 hours before the game, and you got all this sea of crimson and white, right? Just surrounding the whole north end and of the stadium. It's pretty, it's just a pretty impressive sight. So he stood there, jaw dropped. Now he went to school in Texas, right?
Yeah.
But he went, and he has been to the big house. And he saw some things that, he never had experienced before. Some things, the passion, the pageantry of Alabama football. So if you haven't seen it, it's something to behold. And I'll finish with this. Damani Jackson, starting corner at Alabama right now, transferred from USC, spent a couple of years out there. He talks about the Walk of Champions, the first time he walked up that Walk of Champions. And he said he just stopped in his tracks and was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
There's people everywhere. They're hanging from the rafters, right? And he said, the thing was, it was for the A-Day game. I mean, it wasn't even a real game. He's like, man, there's more people out here than there is in the Coliseum in Los Angeles when USC plays. God. So anyway, that's what I would say.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff. I think that is so cool. And it's just college football. That's what you don't see that in the NFL, but by God, you see it in college, And
Rob, I
cool.
will say this about the Walk of Champions. That is an Ole Miss tradition. They actually were the first school to start doing the Walk of Champions back in the 1970s. So it kind of caught on nationally about 20, 30 years later. So if you want to talk about a tradition, I guess you could add that for Ole Miss, because that's something they're proud that they started many, many years ago.
And speaking of that, I wish Alabama would
walk as well. By the way, that Urban Meyer started.
Everybody has their Walk of Champions now, but Ole Miss started that back in the 1970s.
And cool. With Yancy, you saying that, Alabama missed an opportunity with the checkerboard end zones many years ago, because they used to do that. They had that at Legion Field. They were probably the first one that ever had that checkerboard. And now Tennessee, of course, has made it famous the last 35, 40 years.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Right.
There's just nothing like college football. And Rodney and Yancy, I'm going to let y'all check out, and then Brendan and I have got to wrap up. But Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, tell them about it, how they can follow you, and then you, Yancy.
Yeah, it's TighterInsider.com. It's only $48 a year. You can get instant access with your credit card if you prefer. There is an address there to send a check. Gives you all our premium information, but also our all sports forum. That's our community of Alabama fans there. I mean, it is nonstop.
Yeah. Well,
Florida or Georgia?
Yeah.
Rodney.
What's that?
Florida or Georgia? Who you pick?
Florida or Georgia? Well, I'd like to say Florida, but I think I'm going with Georgia.
Right. I figured.
Yeah, and it's 16-point line. That's going to be fun. DJ Lagway, welcome to the against Georgia. It's going to be fun. Right, Yancy, you got a pick in that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think Georgia's just playing at a very high level right now, a level that nobody else is on.
Yeah,
I agree. Well,
yeah.
ETN,
But I think Florida's going to play them tough. I think Florida is getting better and better this season. I think Florida's head coach has saved his job as long as he continues to do what he's done this season. And I like the direction that Florida's going in right now. I really do.
Nope. I don't.
Yancy, we have disagreement. In aisle number 3 from Brendan from
Fool's
Gator
gold.
Tape Media.
Fool's gold.
Well, I mean, look, you flipped that Tennessee game, and would you say that things are going the way that you like it?
I don't. Look, that's a conversation. That's why I like Chris Lee, who I was on earlier today. We can talk about the 3 points here and shoulda, coulda, woulda. That's just a football game. Things change, in the heat of the moment. I mean, look. I'm in year 3 of that game last year, and we could have done this. This is where we've been waiting. Like everything before this season, I think is really led up to this moment, because now they really go into this run. So we'll see. I mean, if he can lose with style, I think that will help. But if it's blowout season, they go out and lose 54-0, then we're going to be having a different conversation next week.
Yeah. Well, that's the SEC, man.
So we'll see.
Guys, I think we all would agree, and Yancy and Rodney and Brendan, that this league, top to bottom, I think it's as competitive as we can remember ever seeing it, and it's just it's just getting started. And
if you don't have ETN plastered all over the locker room right now, I mean, if that's not your whole motivation, I mean, there's a lot. Florida's got a lot of locker room stuff. I think this is what's great about listening to you all come in today and talk about tradition, because this is the time where you start really digging into your school, right? Because it's like we don't know what's going to go out. So I think it's exciting and interesting, and I think it's great to have some parity. Am I pulling for the Gators? Oh, hell yeah. But, I grew up saying, go Gators, not you, Georgia. I hate the Bulldogs with all things other than more than I don't know. I hate them more than the Seminoles. But at the end of the day, Billy has a chance. You're right. Yancy, you're right. Billy does have a chance to save his job. He can go out. You can win or play well, and you can find 2 wins to the end of the year. He'll be back.
Yeah. I mean, guys, I think the one thing about the SEC, I love these comments from the viewers. No team west of the Mississippi or east of the Savannah River is SEC. Where is Georgia Tech? Man, interesting. That's deep thoughts there from Aristotle.
Hell's an engineer.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But and Rodney, that you talk about that walk of champions, I thought that was crazy. And that was just the A-Day game. I mean, people from around the country.
Orange and blue game.
Champion Grove is unreal. And I just remember when Billy Brewer, the dog from Columbus, Mississippi, home of the W, was doing it. And Rodney, could you imagine Coach Bryant toward the end of his career when as they say, when Alabama came to the Liberty Bowl in 82 at the end of his career, they stayed down on the river at the Rivermont Hotel up on the bluff so Coach Bryant could walk across water every morning before practice. It was and by the way, Jackie Sherrill was telling some cool stories last night at the Touchdown Club. And he will be on the show with us Friday. But look, thank you all so much. Executive producer Brendan Martin, who always, our motto is, we never fail, we find excuses to win. And let me say, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Don't ever forget, we're here to help other people. The stronger you are, the better you are for everybody else. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends. We will see you in the morning. Have a great day.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought-after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal, and the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.